Poem or Poetry, presented by Mahatma Ikrar Putra Setiawan with name A1M224051. Learning objectives. First, students will be able to analyze the poem Dreams by Langston Hughes, identifying its central message and exploring the use of metaphors, imagery, and tone. Second, students will evaluate how these literary elements contribute to the poem's overall meaning and significance, demonstrating critical thinking and textual interpretation skills. What is poem? A poem is a piece of writing that relies on rhyme, rhythm, and meter to evoke feeling or to convey setting and story. They can tell stories, record memories, express desires, and share information. Main elements of poem. Stanza. A stanza refers to the way that lines are grouped together in a poem. A stanza can contain any number of lines, but they tend to follow a similar pattern. Although this is not always the case, for example, many poems have stanzas made of four equal lines throughout. Stanzas are separated with breaks or empty spaces in between lines, much like how paragraphs are presented in prose or other writing forms. Meter. Meter is the basic rhythmic structure of a poem. Meter is determined by the number of syllables used in a line and the pattern in which these syllables are used. Some examples of different meter include iambic pentameter, dactyl, spondee, and trochee. The study of meter in poetry is formally referred to as prosody. Rhyme. Rhyme is the repetition of similar sounding words or the same syllables used within a line. Rhyming typically takes place at the end of a line, but irregular rhyme can also occur in words throughout the lines in a poem. The stressed syllables within a word are usually at the end. Rhyme is one of the most commonly used structural devices in poetry and is ideal for spoken poetry or songs. Scheme. Scheme, or rhyming scheme, in poetry is the pattern of sounds or rhymes within a poem. This pattern can be at the end of the line, every other line, or throughout the stanza. It could also include rhyming couplets. Scheme is usually measured in poetry using letters. Verse. The verse in a poem refers to the various parts of a poem. The term is typically used to describe the relationship between rhyme and meter in a certain part of a poem. Verse in poetry contains rhythm, rhyme, or patterns of writing. A verse could be a single line or a stanza, or it could refer to a whole poem written in this style. Types of poem or poetry. First one is lyric. Lyric poetry is by far the most common type of poetry. The word lyric comes from a lyre. A lyre is a harp-like instrument that was played by ancient Greek poets during recitals of their shorter poems. Today, lyric poetry means any short poem. Second one is narrative. The narrative poem is a form of poetry that is used to tell a story. The poet combines elements of storytelling like plot, setting, and characters with elements of poetry such as form, meter, rhyme, and poetic devices. The narrative poem is the oldest form of poetry. Third one is dramatic. Dramatic poetry, like narrative poetry, tells stories. But in dramatic poetry, the poet lets one or more of the story's characters act out the story. Many plays are written as dramatic poetry. The difference between drama and dramatic poetry is a matter of degree. If the dialogue of a play rhymes, has repeating rhythms, or features other distinct poetic elements, The play is considered to be dramatic poetry. In the next slide, I will give you an example of a poem. Dreams by Langston Hughes. Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams go, life is a barren field, frozen with snow. After reading this poem, answer the question on the next slide. Question number 1. What is the main message in the poem? How does Hughes deliver this message? Second, what do you think about the phrase hold fast to dreams implies? How does it show the value of dreams in a person's life? Third, in the first stanza, how does the image of a broken winged bird help us understand what happens when dreams are lost? Fourth, what does the image of a barren field frozen with snow in the second stanza tell us about the consequences of failed dreams? Fifth, what do the words broken wing and barren contribute to the overall mood of the poem? Can you identify it in the poem? 6. What do you think Hughes used the line hold fast to dreams? What role does this repetition of the line play in the poem? 7. What does Hughes mean when he talks about dreams and reality in the poem? Can you give an example of a line which shows this contrast? 8. What do you think is the impact of the poem's structure as far as the overall meaning of the poem is concerned? How are the two stanzas related in any way? Nymph. How do the images in the poem enhance the idea that the author is trying to get across? Please explain one of the images. 10th. What do you think the dreams in the poem are referring to? How is this related to other topics in literature or society? If you already answered all the questions, check the answer key to see if any of your questions that you answered are correct. Source for the poem example is from English Book Class 11 Curriculum 2013, Revised Edition 2017. Thank you for your attention.